Hello, everybody, and welcome to our talk, How to Gate Away with Ingress, 40 days in Gate. You might wonder why we crossed the one. Actually, back then in Salt Lake City, KubeCon NA last year, we came up with the idea, yeah, let's do that talk. We'll be somewhere in the project at that time. Turned out, nope, plans are not working as they do, and so we just had our first community meeting about InGate 40 days ago. This is why I allowed myself to slightly change the title a bit. About me, my name is Marco Ebert. I'm a site reliability engineer at Transform. Already more than 10 years in open source, working with Kubernetes since 2016, and proudly a maintainer of Ingress and NGINX since November 2023. Besides that, I'm interested in climbing and mountain biking. And with that, handing over to James.
Hello, everyone. My name is James Strong. I'm a solutions architect at Isovalent, now with Cisco. I've been a maintainer of the Kubernetes Ingress and NGINX project for a long enough time now that I don't remember how long it's been. I am also the author of the O'Reilly book, Networking Kubernetes, a Cloud Guru instructor on basically the same thing. That was the basis of the book. And I can't really travel with the axe. I would love to, but I don't think Heathrow would like that, or the United States government. But I am a Gimli cosplay enthusiast.
So, what are we going to talk about today? First of all, something about the status of Ingress and NGINX. There have been some little CVEs recently. Yeah, I don't know. Some other topics that we were faced with, and then before we hand over to James again about the InGate status, I'd like to talk about how we get out of Ingress and NGINX into a maintenance mode and what we are going to provide there.
We're going to talk a little bit about how we're going to do that transition with, I'm going to continue to say the word approximate, because like the title of our talk, we thought we'd be 140 days in to InGate, so it's going to be an approximate timeline for that migration path. And we're going to talk about what that gateway API support for Ingress and NGINX features are. I don't know. We have a lot of features. We've talked about a lot of those features all the time, so we're going to talk about what that looks like from a gateway API migration, what the current status is of InGate, and how you all can contribute to it.
So let's start with this little friend here. Actually, the name is not coming from us, neither from Wiz, but media gave it the name Ingress Nightmare. What is Ingress Nightmare?
Lots of
Last
fun.
week we had some. Last week we published some CVEs, so the most important one is the one with the 9.8. It's a critical one, and it's basically unauthenticated remote code execution. Where does this come from? There's like 3 lines in the Ingress and NGINX project that were responsible for checking if a NGINX configuration that the controller is generating is actually valid and working, but this is already happening during the Ingress resource validation, so in an admission controller, and normally, and especially in our setup, you can access this webhook without any authentication. And so whatever you put in there, and if you especially do not go via the API server, you can form your own admission requests and put in whatever you want. And this basically, and in combination with the following 3 CVEs, led to some configuration injection, which potentially can load code and modules. Why is that the fact? So there's a flag-t for NGINX binary, and we didn't expect this to actually load code, but just to test the configuration. The former is the case, and with that, the nice guys of Wiz were able to show us how they could get binaries uploaded to an NGINX Ingress and NGINX controller pod and also execute this code. And the last CVE is also a bit in the combination with the others. You can get access to all the secrets that you're able to reference in an annotation, because with that CVE, it was able to actually just put the secrets, download it from the API server, and put it somewhere in the file system. And because this is a web server, you can also put it somewhere where the web server is actually able to show it to you, and then you have access to the whole API server again. So all of these in combination are definitely critical CVE by CVE, it might not look important, but we can definitely recommend you updating your deployments to either 1.12.1 or 1.11.5 because both of them include fixes. There's also one important change that you might need to know about because we not only fixed the points where you could inject code, but we also disabled this NGINX configuration test during the Ingress validation. This means that while your controller is already running, you probably won't face any disruption, but your NGINX, the Ingress NGINX controller might complain as soon as there is an invalid configuration because this cannot be reloaded. And this becomes really a critical issue as soon as new pods are going to be added or restarted or whatnot, because then they will no longer come up. We were aware of this, but at this point also decided, okay, security is more important for now, and hopefully someone in the future find a possibility to re-enable this check, but for now and in this patched version, it's disabled by default, and also there's no way around this. Last but not least, on our issue tracker, we got asked, how is this about change root? Is this maybe changing something? Can we re-enable this check in change root deployments? Short answer, no, because you can Google that. There are plenty of threads about it. Change root is not meant as a security device, and even worse, if you manage to get out of the change root, then you normally have way more access because running a pod with change root just requires root access in the end, and this just makes it a lot worse. Some other status update around the Ingress NGINX project. Right after and during our last talk in Salt Lake City, we were also facing some serious issues around Google Cloud Build. We are using Google Cloud Build to build and then in the later step also promote our images. And especially with cross-platform compilation, there were some issues. We couldn't find the root cause, and sadly, surprisingly, whatever, they just got solved overnight. If someone of you is working for Google, especially Cloud Build, I'd like to have like 48 hours of my lifetime back because I wasted at least these on troubleshooting the issue. Next, around December, we got the OpenResty, which is basically the NGINX distribution we are using, updated. This is currently on main and will probably be released in the next minor release. And last but not least, because the Google Container Registry got deprecated, or at least we for Kubernetes projects should no longer use it, migrated to the artifact registry. And again, we're facing some funny issues with Google Cloud Build, especially if you're trying to build an image and it takes more than an hour, you'll definitely get some timeouts because it builds. Oh, and now I want to push, but your authentication timed out. Fuck you. Sorry. That's just another issue that really cost me a lot of time, and I'm just happy it's working now. And last week, right before we published the CVEs, I got this fixed, and I somehow wasn't able to read calendar because I fixed it on Monday, and I thought, okay, it's another 2 days now. I have time for the CVE fixes. Yep, and Tabitha, first row here, was like, are you ready to publish the CVE fixes? It's Monday. Yes, we agreed on Monday. Oh, okay. This was not expected, sorry. Oh, come on.
But we handle unexpected things as gracefully as we can.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
And before we hand over to James about InGate status, here's a bit information about maintenance mode. So as of now, we'd like to still provide as stable as possible solution, and therefore we will definitely continue updating Alpine, Golang, Kubernetes, third-party dependencies. We will also continue to fix bugs and of course CVEs, so you can safely expect us to still release patch releases on a monthly basis. A future version 1.13 will probably be the last minor release, which means that after that, we will also, at least from our side, not push forward any features and any new features. So if you propose new features to us, this will be a case-by-case basis, and it needs to be decided. There is no general, okay, just merge anymore. Apart from that, we still will support newer Kubernetes releases in the future, because as of now, what we do is just spinning up a kind cluster in a specific Kubernetes version, and then we run our whole E2E test suite against this. So it's comparable easy to support future Kubernetes versions, but there would not be any further development with our whole Ingress NGINX project feature-wise. And I think one of the last things we are doing is actually providing a migration path to InGate. And with that, I think I'll hand over to James.
Yeah, I was going to say, I want to continue and add just, I did have someone yesterday come up to me and say, hey, I do have a PR open. I know it's not been looked at, but what's going to happen to it? So one of the things that we're trying to do, I know there are 78 pull requests open right now. I know that because I read them. Maybe not finish all of them, but if you do have a pull request open, please let us know in the Slack, come to the community meeting and help us get that into that 113 milestone, because we don't want to continue to have to do minor patch releases, minor releases. So if you have one open, please let us know. We have earmarked some already for 113. And with that, I did say approximate. I continue want to say approximate because we had the 9.8 CVE. That took up a lot of Marco's time to get that worked through. We have a limited amount of time as open source contributors. This is not our day job. Well, I mean, it's not my day job. You get some time for it as a service provider. But yeah, no. Anyway, no. But this has the Gateway API timeline on it as well. But we want to, again, we stated this goal in Salt Lake City. That's why a lot of this stuff is approximate. We would like to, by Atlanta, have a VO1 that people can test, that can work through, setting up simple HTTP routes, manage a gateway class, things like that. And then I put InGate stable in here, and it's not here directly in a timeline, but what is stable? Stable is it's passing the conformance tests. It's manages whatever version that's available. So 1.6 from this timeline. We're working on the 1.3. I think that's got some RCs out. So probably 1.2 by Atlanta, be able to run through those. Because, as we've talked about, we've started the timer on the Ingress NGINX archive. So we say maintenance mode, but there is an actual, in the Kubernetes community, maintenance mode means the project's being archived. It's no longer going to be updated. There's going to be no new releases. No one's working on it. So our maintenance mode means we are putting out minimal releases. It will be archived. So that's the plan. Once we have a stable release that folks can migrate to, and we have a migration path, we will archive the project. And the goal is 2027. I forgot I put that on there. I want to let people know, depending on the level of everyone's involvement here, will depend on how fast we can do this. As part of that, I've been working with one of the Gateway API maintainers and looking at what Ingress NGINX supports from a features functionality and versus what is supported in Gateway API. 35% is supported today. So if we were to implement 1.2, folks would be missing out on a lot of functionality. Supported soon, so there's probably a gap. Someone's working on it. It's an experimental. 55% will be supported soon. So maybe by 2026, we'll have that 55%, but we do have an issue with understanding what is going on with the no plans, that 45%. That's what's left. A lot of those things will not be supported. So we have things, I don't want to say will not be supported. There are currently no plans. So there's no GEP. There's been no conversation in the community. So I thought, mod security was one of them. But talking with Rob this
we
week,
can safely make it to Gateway API.
talking with Rob this week, there actually is a gap out there for WAF implementation in Gateway API. So this is the call to action for most people. Oh, I'm jumping over my slides in my head. When we say support, there are 118 annotations in Ingress NGINX. And this is just an example of one of them. So going through all of this, we've grouped them. We've got about 40 groups of annotations, but you can see there's no plans for setting auth always set cookie. Auth method is going to, in progress. So there's lots of things that just aren't supported. We have a whole spreadsheet for all of this, and we've only looked at the annotations. We've not looked at the config map options. So if you want to set like TCP and UDP route, which is an experimental in Gateway, that's a configuration option. So there's even more functionality that we just don't know about. And what I was saying for the call to action is I maybe removed it. I'm talking through my I have two presentations, so I'm talking very closely to both of these things. But we have an ask for you for a survey. I'll bring that up later. But talking about InGate and its current status, if you were at our talk in Salt Lake City, this looks very familiar because it is the same slide. We do have a new repo in the Kubernetes SIG. We're doing core gateway implementation, so anything that's going to be in 1.2, 1.3, right now we're, because of the vast amount of work that needs to be done, we're not going to be able to extend the API, nothing implementation specific, extension points, things like that, anything in experimental. There will be Ingress support, but we say Ingress API support. It will be a very clean, very exact implementation of the Ingress API. We're not going to expose Lua. We're not going to expose the NGINX config. There's lots of things that we aren't going to do that, unfortunately, I say that are sins of the past that have caused a lot of technical debt, have caused CVEs, and caused issues as maintainers. So if you want advanced functionality that you had in Ingress NGINX, you need to work with the Gateway API community to get it implemented in Gateway API. That's the gist of that one. We do have a documentation site that has no documentation. We are actually using the discussions on the board, so we have about 3 right now, just working through, trying to understand, right? There is a lot that needs to be done, and we need to understand why those decisions are going to be made, so we can have a historical record, because there are a lot of things like, I don't know why mod security was implemented, why someone asked for, it's in the Git commits and it's in the Git history, but it doesn't explain why that decision was made. So we're trying to work through a lot of those discussions. So we'll have them in Slack, we'll have them in community meetings, and just trying to keep a record of like why we've made the decisions that we've made. And as you can see, we have it starts the controller manager. So again, a lot of work to be done, and actually, yeah, that's my next slide. So one of the issues that we have with, and one of the vulnerabilities that was exploited, is that the controller and the NGINX proxy are running in the same pod. NGINX doesn't need as much permissions as Ingress does. So for that, we've been trying, and we tried with the control plane, splitting those out. It was a horrendous mess. I think that's really what broke Ricardo and made him, leave the maintainership. But it is very difficult with the technical debt that we have now. They're very intertwined in our Ingress controller and NGINX. So one of the reasons why we want to start the project fresh is that we will start with that separated. That does introduce a new problem. We have to understand, how do we push a configuration to the NGINX controller? How do we manage that fleet? What's that API look like? How do we do that communication? So that's one of the things, that's actually a discussion point that's up there right now. How do we do the translation layer, right? How do we get those gateway objects into an NGINX config? We need to figure that out. How do we manage gateway class, HTTP route, gRPC? Those we just, hopefully with the use of using controller runtime will help us, bootstrap us a lot faster than having to do it ourselves. So we're working on that. And of course, with the introduction of Gateway API, there is conformance testing that says that we do run like version 1.2 that we have to report to the Gateway API maintainers. So somebody will have to write the conformance testing, set up all of that. There's a lot of bootstrap code that needs to be written. I think I spent an entire weekend just getting getting everything up and running, building the container, the Go stuff, all of the nitty-gritty that's needed. That it's not fun, but it's needed to happen. That'll be on the conformance testing, and then I say testing because we're doing this all in kind. We will not be doing this in AWS, GCP, other areas. So we would need folks to help us out with that testing, doing that deployment, giving us that feedback. Once we have a release that folks can actually run something on.
Yeah, I can do that.
Sure.
So James already told it multiple times now. It not only depends on us, it also depends on the community. And if you are questioning, if you are asking yourself now, how can you contribute? We already have set up a new Kubernetes Slack channel. There is InGate Dev, mostly for developers and development questions and topics. And there also is, same as for Ingress NGINX users, a InGate users channel. And there you can come ask your questions around support, about how to implement your use case using InGate and whatnot. There are contributor documentations about how you can start contributing to the project. You can find them in our GitHub repository. And every other Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, we have a community meeting. This is already happening since a few weeks now, so exactly 40 days.
It's mostly just me talking for 40 minutes, so please come and ask questions so I don't have to talk for an hour on a recording by myself.
And yeah. So, last but not least, we would like to ask you for some feedback about what are the most critical Ingress NGINX features that would need a gateway API equivalent before you migrate. This is mostly about gateway API, so you need to know the difference that InGate is implementing gateway API, but with InGate we would like to adhere to gateway API, and therefore new features shall also go through discussions with the whole Gateway API team and not only InGate. And this will be the process for us in the future. And with that, we hopefully can find a way to implement features in a way that it's not going to be a security issue in like 2 years again.
No, we don't want that.
Yeah.
So what day is that? What day is today? Thursday at 4, so that's tomorrow, right? We will continue this conversation with some of the Gateway API maintainers. If you want, you can come hang out with us, ask your questions, and continue the conversation around what features and functionality are important to you, what you need to see to help make a successful migration. And also, I will be talking in quite literally a half hour with Rob Scott, one of the Gateway API maintainers, and what his plans are to help us with that migration. So yeah, we're talking a lot about it. So.
And that's it. Thanks for attending our talk.
If you have any questions, there is a mic here. If it's about the CVE, just upgrade.
Wow.
Sure.
Go.
Oh, fine. Now that's it. I have one question. Is it already decided which versioning scheme InGate will follow?
A version scheme.
Yeah, it looks like semantic versioning, but semantic versioning is kind
So-
of religious, specifically
Yep.
which NGINX is.
Yeah. So this has upset a lot of people, and I am definitely going to put documentation on what our scheme is going to look like. It looks like semantic versioning, but it is not. So we got into the habit of, we made one major release, and I actually was trying to think on Monday why we made that major release. I think it was an NGINX upgrade. I can't really remember, but we're not going to make a major release every time we make a configuration change. So we will document that. So one of the things that we did is that I think 1.11, we introduced annotation validations, and it was false. And in 1.12, we switched it to true, trying to get to that idea of like secure by default. So people either didn't read the documentation, didn't read the release notes. It upset folks, but we did understand that it is not SimVer because it's a change, it's not backwards compatible. To me, it was because if you read the documentation, you knew it, you didn't blindly update, you would switch that back to false. So we have the conversations a lot in a lot of our meetings. We have it in Slack. We put it in the release notes. We try to be as vocal as possible about these changes. But yeah, some folks would disagree that we don't follow SimVer. So we will try to make that very clear in the release process, what that actually means, what version changes means. Because we fixed CVEs in patch releases. So yeah.
Just to summarize then, the InGate will follow a similar versioning scheme as the NGINX Ingress.
Yeah, but it will be documented, and we'll make sure that folks are aware of it. Because we realized when I was reading an issue, I went back and I realized, it's like, oh, we don't really document what the version scheme is. It just looks like SimVer, so people assume it's SimVer. And yeah, we have definitely broken a lot of clusters, like folks that use Flex and Argo CD when we do patch releases. Yeah, we know.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Well, if you are all interested in doing that, please come talk to us. There's lots of things that it doesn't need to necessarily be code. There's user experience. There's the testing. So if you have access to things, Oracle Cloud or OpenShift clusters, there are going to be things that we're just not going to be able to test against. So that's always available from a contributor's perspective. And if you're just interested in listening, that's fine too. All right. Thanks, everyone.